All right, welcome back. So in this video, we're now going to go over transcendental chi control. Right. So like I said before, we kind of went over a lot of the concepts that we're going to talk about. Actually, there are probably some new concepts we haven't really went into too much. But to go over it, let's go over this first point. It says transcendental chi control is achieved by charging around the manifestation intention. Right. So very basic. So we talked about how. So this is an influence type psychic ability. We talked about how for sensory type psychic abilities, so ESP, you would just charge the subconscious around the sense intention. So you want to sense a target and you just keep charging around that. So we talked about how to do that. You would enter a transcendental state, and then your subconscious instinct will naturally just sense the target or activate your spirit in a way that allows you to sense the target. We talked about psychic impressions and all of that. So transcendental chi control is basically the same way. So when you control your chi in a transcendental way, your subconscious has to be in its excited state, and you would get in, once it goes into excited state by holding a manifestation intention, you would, through instinct or out of subconscious instinct, you would control your chi or just express it or move it in a certain way. And we'll go more into that in, I think, the next video. We're going to talk about how to charge your subconscious to control your chi for transcendental chi control, which is virtually just the same technique for charging ESP, because this is a psychic ability. Your spirit has to be activated in order to control your chi in this manner. So your third eye has to turn on, your spirit has to become activated, which you need psychic energy to do that. So in a nutshell, though, that is how you control your chi transcendentally. Now, for this next point, pretty basic. So it says, I didn't feel like writing the whole thing out, so I just put, it follows the usual properties of transcendental mental abilities. So transcendental chi control follows the usual properties of transcendental mental abilities. So one is timing. So you can't just control your chi in a transcendental way anytime you feel like, right? You can only do it when you're in a transcendental state. I suppose also if you have charged it already and you have it charged in your short-term memory and you have the mood that allows you to control your chi that way. But generally we just leave it at when you're in a transcendental state, then you can control it using subconscious instinct. It follows the property of quantization. So when you control your chi and use it to manifest in a certain way, your subconscious, it'll manifest in a certain way related to your intention and the subconscious frequency that you're on, and organization, because now we talked about that. So organization is another aspect of quantization. Basically, if you have a negative intention, right, your negative intention will cause your subconscious to switch to a negative frequency, and that on that frequency, it can only manifest sort of negative organizational patterns, right? So if I have a negative intention, it'll cause chi to manifest in my body in a way that just destroys it, because that destruction is associated with the organizational pattern of that, whatever negative frequency it is. So it'll destroy it in some way or hurt it in some way, like I said, which we call stress. And so my ability to manifest chi, or what the chi can sort of influence a target to do, is related to the quantization component, right? If I hold the intention to heal my body, then that's going to be, it'll switch to, frequency will be positive, but it'll switch to the healing frequency. I'll feel the emotion of healing, and now my chi will be able to manifest in my body in a manner related to healing, and that's associated with the organizational pattern of healing, which in my body would just be it looking very healthy. But yeah, so, and I could pick different intentions to use. If I hold the intention to destroy my body, it's going to do just that. It'll feel negative. So transcendental chi control, it just follows the property of quantization. Now there is more to talk about that. There's an intelligence component here that's worth mentioning, which I'm going to talk about toward the end of the video. But the third component is energy. So energy is a bit more tricky. So I want to talk about that for a moment. Because, we know that any transcendental mental ability has a component of energy. And so it charges up and expresses itself in a certain way as it gains more and more energy. We know for emotions, for example, as you charge your subconscious energy to express an emotion more, you just feel it more intensely, right? For belief, you feel the compulsion to believe something more strongly, and your perception is altered more strongly. When you charge transcendental creativity, your subconscious organizes in a more complex way, and we kind of went over that theory. You develop different subconscious paths, and you can kind of go in and out of a transcendental state while performing an activity more. You can perform the activity in a transcendental way more continuously. But what does it mean to charge? What does it mean to charge your chi in a transcendental way? What happens when you charge it to have more and more, when you charge your subconscious energy more and more to control your chi? So that's a very interesting question, right? If we think about psychic abilities, which hopefully none of you have really done this, right? If you didn't get permission from God, but just speaking for me, from experience, when I charge, I've never charged that much psychic energy, but when I have, like I said, I think I mentioned, I've been in the zone, I'd probably say about 2 times with psychic energy. What ends up happening is your spirit awakens, so you're just going to start noticing your spiritual senses activate more and more and more and more, and you can start sensing things even not related to what you were holding the intention to sense. But for the thing you did hold the intention to sense, you feel more connected to it, and you can just sense it more and more and more. So that's what happens when you charge ESP more. But what happens when you charge your subconscious to use chi more? So that's an interesting question. I haven't done this that much either, but I do have experience with doing it. I mainly did it with healing my body. So to go over this first point, this is what I believe happens, right? So the subconscious actually, I should also mention, what happens when your subconscious charges, your subconscious energy charges more and more to use chi. But the other interesting question is where your chi comes from, right? Like I said before, if you charge it, you don't have an infinite amount of chi. But if you charge your subconscious if you charge your subconscious energy to use chi energy, are you using up your chi energy? And if you use up your chi energy, then are you using up subconscious energy? So that's an interesting question, because we're dealing with 2 different forms of energy here. And there's a quality of using up, right, that doesn't really apply to other transcendental mental abilities. Because when they get used up in this sense, we're just talking about building negative memory to them, right? So when you charge a lot of emotional energy, you feel it like crazy. But then as that emotion goes away, we talked about how it discharges. We talked about how it just loses energy in its passive state. And that's kind of using the energy. But this is a little different. We're talking about manifesting that energy. Sure, we could lose the energy when the subconscious memory is in its passive state for a while, but this is actually using energy to institute a change or cause a change in matter. So that's losing energy in a whole other way that doesn't apply to any other transcendental mental abilities. So that's why it just requires more of a discussion. But I'm going to answer some of those questions, so I'll answer it here. So to go over this first point, the subconscious charges in a manner that allows you to store chi or build it up and then use or manifest in large bursts. So the first question I want to answer is kind of what happens when you charge your subconscious energy to use chi, right? So let's say I want to charge my subconscious to use my chi to heal my body, right? And I keep charging it to heal my body. I keep saying heal, and then I hold the intention to heal, and I keep going in and out of a transcendental state. So what happens? Well, the first thing I notice, this will make a little more sense when we talk about it in the next video, because remember, so this is a psychic ability, so it requires you to charge your subconscious in a way that, in the way we talked about using psychic abilities. Like I said, I'll talk about it in the next video, but it's virtually the same as what we talked about in the last chapter. But you would keep going in you would keep pre-charging it, right? So a lot of your charging will occur in very short intervals, like you're pre-charging it. And when I did that, I wasn't necessarily using my chi in a manifestational way. I might have been a little bit, but I was more or less building it up. Because we talked about how last chapter, how it feels like potential energy when you're charging psychic energy, because the negative memory or the subconscious entropy rate, so the negative memory builds up so insanely fast with psychic abilities that you have to keep going in and out of it in very short intervals, because you're in a subconscious entropy dead zone, right? Where negative memory doesn't quite build up that fast, so you're in a transient negative memory state. So you kind of have to stay in that state to build a lot of psychic energy. It's the only way you can. The moment you get out of it, negative memory will just build up so fast, you virtually can't charge it. So it's the same thing with chi. But so when you're doing that with psychic energy for ESP, you tend to feel like you're in the mood to use your psychic abilities to sense something, because it's like you stored so much energy in your short-term memory that you're not using, because you're not focusing on your target and expressing the intention to sense something for a long period of time. So I think that was a long-winded way of saying it, but suffice it to say, when you continuously pre-charge like that and you start to deep charge or pre-charge, it'll feel like potential energy. So that's the same thing that happens here. When I'm charging my subconscious to heal my body, I keep doing it in very short intervals, and I feel a lot of, I feel like I'm in the mood, right, to heal my body more. And it's like I want to release it. I just want to say heal and stay in that state instead of going in and out of it, going into it for an extremely short interval and going out. So it feels like potential energy. And I think that feeling, right, is actually building up actual chi, right? So if I keep, again, this will make a little more sense next video, but if I keep pre-charging and I say heal my body and then I stop, and I say heal my body and then I stop, and then I say heal my body and then I stop in pre-charging sessions, then I'm building up, my short-term memory is building up with the command to heal my body, but that's not enough time to actually use up my chi to influence the matter in my body to heal. So it ends up, it is being stored in my mood, but what ends up happening is I have my mood, in my mood I feel this urge to use my chi in a longer way. And that longer way is really, I think, the moment where I'm actually manifesting my chi. And so that's why I say, when you keep doing it in short intervals, you feel like this urge. So it's like you're building the potential energy. But in this case, I believe that potential energy feeling, when you feel this urge, like I want to heal, right? That's the buildup of the potential energy of healing. I believe that's actual chi. So chi gets built up, right, in your spirit or your etheric body. When you're building it that way, you're storing it and it's building up. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. Do I talk about that here? Actually, no, I'll talk about it now, right? But before I get into it, so you build it up, right? And then, let's say you do it for longer intervals, so you start holding the intention to actually heal. So you allow your subconscious instinct to start expressing the action of healing, right? The subconscious action of healing, which is transcendental chi control. And when you start doing it, you're going to actually feel like you're using up your chi. So you're actually impacting your body now to heal. And it's actually stimulating the matter in your body to heal. So that's actually using it up. But once you've built it to that level, and you start actually just saying, okay, fine, instead of doing it in these super short intervals, now I'm just going to heal, and I'm allowing myself to do it in longer intervals, you're going to notice your subconscious instinct sort of expressing itself much more intensely, right? And in that case, you're going to feel like you're now using the healing in large bursts. And then it starts to go away and it starts to go down. So that's you actually using up your chi that you build up. So in a nutshell, chi energy builds, right? So you can build it, charging psychic energy for the influence type psychic ability around a manifestation intention. And again, this is the technique. It's the same as what we talked about last chapter, but I'll still go over it again next video. But you would build it, and like you would build up the energy, and then you start to use it up in large bursts. And so that's how chi works. So if you don't build it up like that, you can only use it in very sort of low burst, ineffective ways, which is basically just normal chi control. You wouldn't even really notice it. Your body does most of the using of your chi in a highly efficient way. This would probably be a highly wasted way because you're using your intention, but your body uses chi in a more natural way. So it has the meridians, or like the etheric vessel, almost like blood vessels, but occurring in your etheric body. So you have the meridians that go to your heart, your organs, or your kidney, your bladder, your intestines, your brain, your bones, your muscles. So it are meridians that go to those sections, and then chi is delivered to them, and your body programs that chi to manifest in that particular part of your body in a particular way that helps it to function, right? So most of your chi is being used for that without you really even realizing it. But if you're using transcendental chi control, then that's how you would use it, using your intention, and you would use it in large bursts. So that's what happens when you're charging the energy. That's how you would charge it and build it up and use it. But now an interesting question is, where does the chi energy even come from, right? So it's one thing to charge it and use it, but how are you getting it to even charge it, right? Where is it coming from? What is the source of your chi, right? That's an interesting question because it doesn't really come up that much with other transcendental mental abilities, right? So if I'm talking about an emotion, for example, if I charge my subconscious to build an emotion, where am I getting the energy for that emotion, right? The subconscious energy for the emotion, right? So how am I making this emotion feel more and more and more intense? That's an interesting question. I don't even think I really asked that question before, but it's something that's interesting to think about, right? So when you're charging a belief, right, where's the energy coming from that's making that belief stronger, right? And how's your subconscious energy building that energy? If you use transcendental imagination, your perception is being altered more and more powerfully so that your imagination becomes more vivid and more intense in terms of the sensory experience. Where is the energy coming from to do that? It takes energy to alter your perception that way. Same thing with transcendental creativity and so on, right? Transcendental control. Where is the energy coming from? But we can also ask that same question here for chi energy. Where is the energy coming from that allows you to build it and manifest change? I didn't mention it, but I think all of those things come from the same place, right? The energy needed to pull off all those things comes from the same place. And we're going to talk a little more about that toward the end of the chapter. But for now, I'm just going to go over this point here, which, like I said, your spirit doesn't have infinite energy. But to go over here, the spirit primarily gains chi while we're sleeping, but may also be able to gather it from the environment, particularly from plants. So this is my theory, right? This is just my belief. I came up with this just thinking about this and being inspired by certain things. It's not really important, but what I believe now is that your spirit, so this is coming from your spirit, right? Sometimes we talk about things in terms of the subconscious. Other times we'll switch to just talking about your spirit. Like I said, I don't know exactly where the spirit begins and the spirit ends and the subconscious begins. But for the moment, we're just now going to talk about the spirit. So your spirit, I believe, actually gains chi while you're sleeping, and where it gets it from, I believe, largely comes from God, right? So I'm going to talk more about that later, toward the end of the chapter. But for now, we'll just say your spirit, it's basically connected to God through your silver cord, and you gain energy while you're sleeping, which your spirit either comes as chi or your spirit converts it into chi, but you would gain chi while you're sleeping, and that's ultimately how your body gets recharged, right? That's the source. Your body doesn't have infinite chi energy. It can't just make more of it however much it feels like or produce an infinite amount, right? Your spirit actually has its own version of sustenance, right? So we'll talk more about that toward the end of the chapter, but just like your body needs food, your spirit actually needs food. It needs energy, right, to do what it does. And the energy is constantly coming from God. But you mainly get it when you're sleeping. It's like your spirit can breathe the most while you sleep, or the most easily, or get the energy the most easily when you sleep. And so that's why when you sleep, when you wake up, you feel very refreshed and energized. It's actually because, now your body, yes, it heals when you're sleeping, and it does a lot of things to energize you when you're sleeping, but that's actually, I don't think those things are the main reason you actually feel the best and refreshed and replenished and energized when you wake up. It's actually because your spirit got more chi inside of it, right? And when your spirit got that chi, it went to your etheric body, and your etheric body, your body basically commands your subconscious to control your chi such that your etheric body uses it, converts it into vitality, and then is sent to your organs, your brain, your bones, your bone is not an organ, but it's sent to your organs, like your brain, your intestines, your kidneys, your lungs. It even flows throughout your blood. It goes through your bones, right? Your etheric body has sort of connections to all these aspects of your body. It sends chi energy to them and commands your chi to help those things function and run better, right? And so that's what I believe happens, and that's also why your body is even able to heal so well. Now, of course, you could say that when you're sleeping, you're not moving around so much, so that's why your body heals better. But I think it's more than that, right? I think it's also the fact that you're just gaining more chi, right? So when you go about your day, you don't use all your chi, right? You're not gonna be. I don't think you would actually die if you use all your chi, but your body would just not run as smoothly and efficiently. But you still have chi, but when you go to sleep, right, you get more chi. You're much more replenished, and so your body's able to run and function better and heal better, right, with that extra chi. And so, what was I going to say? So when you go about your day and when you use up your chi, I was going to say, science, I was actually looking this up, right? Because I had these ideas. This was a while ago, but I kind of had these ideas a little bit at the time. I was looking up about just information about what happens when people sleep. If a person doesn't sleep, do they die? Do they get injured? What's the scientific sort of theory on why people need sleep. And when I looked it up, I saw that they actually don't know, right? So they really don't know why people and why organisms in general, complex organisms, right, generally, but they don't know why organisms, animals, why we really need sleep, right? Yes, the body heals better during sleep, but it doesn't heal in a way that where it seems like sleep is completely necessary, right? So the healing that's observed while we're sleeping still seems to be possible to occur to a degree while we're awake. Even if we're awake but super still, right? We still should be able to do a decent amount of healing, right? The amount of damage and the way the body just breaks down, right? If you're not sleeping, so even if you're not doing anything but you're just awake, right? You're perfectly still. The body still just breaks down in a certain way that doesn't seem to make sense. It's only when we sleep, right? Literally just closing my eyes and letting my mind drift off. Somehow that gives my body the ability to heal way more or not break down in the way it does when I'm not sleeping. So that's something science doesn't understand. Like, at least according to what I read, if I interpret it properly, science doesn't understand, like, why do people need sleep, right? It doesn't make sense, right? The way the body breaks down, it breaks down too much to say that when you sleep, you heal, and that's why the body's not breaking down when you're not sleeping, right? It goes beyond that. It breaks down too much, right, when you don't sleep, such that sleep is what prevents it. There's nothing special about sleep that allows you to heal so much that it'll be able to prevent the breakdown that's observed when you don't sleep. So it's something science hasn't really been able to figure out, and I believe, right, that the answer is with your chi, right? Because the one thing, as always, that modern science doesn't look at are the metaphysics, right? And metaphysically, you get your chi when you sleep. That's the main time you get your chi energy. And so when your spirit gets revitalized with that chi, it can now heal your body and cause it to function better. So I actually mentioned that, I think it was 2 videos ago, but I mentioned how that if you don't have, I suspect, right, so this is my theory, right, that you cannot explain the way the body functions solely in terms of, I call it Brownian motion. I know a lot of physicists will say that's not what Brownian motion is. I call it Brownian motion because I feel like that's what it is. Brownian motion is basically just referring to random motion. Now, yes, random motion of molecules. Yes, it's normally discussed in the context of diffusion through a solution and usually thermodynamics and empty spaces within the solution, things like that, or where the molecules haven't. It basically talks about the molecules spreading to areas where it's not, where there's a low concentration of it. I get it, right? But it's really just talking about random motion of molecules, right? And if we're talking about the physical body, you cannot really explain the behavior of your cells and the way your body functions in terms of random behavior of molecules, random behavior of cells and molecules within those cells and things like that. There's an intelligence to it that just you won't be able to explain without appealing to metaphysics. And I believe this is one of those areas, right? The body breaks down and it just starts becoming stupid, right, in a way that just doesn't make sense, right? It should be doing the same random Brownian motion that when you're sleeping versus when you're awake. Why is it seeming like it's losing its intelligence? It's breaking down in a way when you're not sleeping. I believe the answer is because of your chi, right? So when you lose your chi because you're not sleeping, right, your body just starts to become more stupid because your etheric body is not supporting it as much. It doesn't have the energy to support it. So your organs are just going to start doing things that don't make any sense, and it's going to start to become more stupid, and it's going to start to break down until you sleep again. So that's where you primarily get your chi, but I also believe it might be possible, right, to get chi even from the environment, to sort of bring it in. So I remember one day, I was thinking about this, and I tested the intention, so I charged chi, and I charged psychic energy around the manifestation intention of just absorbing chi from the environment. So I just held the intention to absorb chi from the environment around me, right? And I just started charging around that intention to see what happens, right? I don't know. Right? So that was the first time I did it. And I remember when I did it, I started to feel super alert, right? I felt super alert and super energized. I barely did anything yet. So I don't think that was actually the energy being absorbed. I think that was, it felt like it was a response from my body, a natural response to my body, a natural response from my body toward this sort of innate ability we have. I don't know, right? So I never did it. I never really did it beyond that. I haven't experimented with that too much, but it seemed like my body was like, okay, I know what's happening. You're trying to absorb chi from the environment. Let me change in this way so you could do that, right? It seems like it's a normal, my body expects this response or this phenomenon to occur. And it has like an innate response that's ready for when that phenomena occurs. But like I said, I haven't done it too much, but when I did it, I immediately felt super alert. I felt super energized. And I felt like my feet were kind of going into the ground, almost like roots and plants. That's what it felt like, right? It's like in my intuition. So we talked about sensing in the spirit, right? So you have a normal level of intuition. I felt like my feet were being rooted into the floor, right? Into the ground. And I was absorbing energy from the earth, right? That's what it felt like. So I don't know. I didn't do it too much to see what happens. But in my theory for plants is I just think that might be possible as well. I think plants give energy to us, right? So we're not stealing it from them. So if you touch a plant, and you just hold the intention to absorb chi from it, it might let you, right? So I don't know. So this is highly theoretical and metaphysical stuff, right? I haven't experimented with this stuff, but I think that might be possible. Again, controlling your chi, there's a lot of rules regarding its legality. So you have to have a strong relationship with God to kind of do this stuff in a legal way, right? And I'm not interested in this stuff. I'm more interested in the theory, right? I care about theory. That's always been my interest in chi and psychic abilities. I don't really care about them. Never was really that interested in them otherwise. Maybe one day I'll experiment with this stuff, but I don't really care, right? My main concern, the only reason I even learned about any of this stuff or theorized about them and have these ideas is because I wanted to know the theory of how they worked. I wasn't that interested in actually using them. So that's just my theory on these concepts now. And like I said, we'll talk more about the concept of life in the spirit or chi energy in the spirit toward the end of the chapter. And so the last thing I want to talk about is the intelligence factor associated with transcendental chi control. Excuse me. So to read this, it says transcendental chi control involves using a special kind of intelligence that goes beyond the conscious mind. So that's important because when we talk about manifesting chi, so this was something that I was kind of considering when I was doing this, right? So if you hold the intention to heal your body, right, what constitutes healing your body, right? Who says what healing your body is? Who's to say that me not, hurting my body, or I should say me not cutting myself? I shouldn't really say that. But who's to say that me not damaging my skin in some way, right, is a form of healing, right? Who makes that decision? How does my body know what healing is? Or how does my subconscious know what healing is when I hold that intention? But based on my experience, it's what happens, right? If I hold the intention to heal, my subconscious starts doing stuff and it seems to start healing my body, right? So how does it know how to heal it? How does it even know what it means? I don't even know what it means, right? I'm not expressing that in my intention. And the answer, I believe, is that your subconscious or your spirit taps into a kind of universal intelligence. So it taps to some type of higher intelligence that allows you to use your chi in the way that you've asked for, right? And we talked a little bit about that in the last chapter when we talked about psychic abilities. So if I hold the intention to sense some target at a distance, somehow my spirit is pulling in information about what that target is, whatever sensory aspect I'm inquiring about, it pulls in information according to that sensory aspect. Where's that information coming from? What library of knowledge is it tapping into to get that information? I don't know. But whatever reason, it seems that it has the ability to tap into some type of universal knowledge, right, that allows me to, we set up the theory, I'm connecting to it and I'm sensing it, but still, it seems to be tapping into some type of, we'll just say for now, it seems to be tapping into some type of external library of knowledge that allows us to get information about the target. And we talked about this also happens in near-death experiences where they ask a question in their mind and they just know the answer. That's may potentially be another component of your third eye, sensing reality, or just one of the abilities it has to collect information. Or it may be tapping into something else, who knows? But the same phenomena occurs with chi, right? So when you hold the intention to manifest your chi or do something with your chi, like I want to heal my body, right? it seems to be tapping into some type of universal intelligence that sort of tells it what to do to carry out your commands. So your conscious mind doesn't even need to know what's happening, right? If I hold the intention to heal my body, my subconscious or my spirit seems to be to tap into some type of universal intelligence that allows it to know exactly what it needs to do to carry out the command heal, right? So even if, let's say I have diseased cells, right, in my hand. Now, I look at my hand, it kind of hurts a little bit. I don't even know what's going on with it. I don't know it on a conscious level, but I just know it hurts a little bit. If I hold the intention to heal, and I start charging it transcendentally, right, now this is highly experimental, I've never done it. I mean, it's highly theoretical, I've never done any of this yet. But if my theory is right, then it may potentially heal the diseased cells or start trying to, the chi will start trying to affect change in my body and in my cells to start moving in a certain way that reflects a state of healing. So it's going to try to heal the diseased cells. But I didn't know that there were diseased cells there. I just knew it hurt a little bit. But that's the point. My chi will tap into a kind of universal intelligence that tells it what to do to carry out my commands. So that's a theory of mine. I suspect that's the case because, like I said, when I have held the intention to heal, and I don't really have anything that I know of, right, that I need to heal, but I just did it to see what would happen, and I could feel it, and I could feel the way my chi was affecting my body. I'll talk more about that experience later, but it felt like something was actually happening in response to that intention, right? So I believe that that chi there's an intelligence factor involved in using your chi that goes beyond the conscious mind. Now, what's important also to understand about that is that before I get into that, I want to talk about the frequency component. So the intelligence carries out the command that I'm saying, but what it does is also related to the frequency. So if I'm on a negative frequency, let's say I'm on a negative frequency. Let's say, how do I want to word it? Let's say, before I get into it, let's just say that I hold the intention for some reason to hurt my body, right? Then my subconscious will tap into a universal intelligence that tells me it's going to inform my chi energy how to hurt my body, right? So it's going to carry out the command of my intention, but what it manifests is still going to be related to the frequency, right? So it's very important. If you're on a negative frequency, your chi is usually going to manifest, I should say always, it's going to manifest something negative or undesirable. But another aspect of this intelligence that I've come to believe is that you're never really sure what your chi is going to try to manifest because you're not the one sort of commanding it, right? On that scale. Now, you can express your chi in a more specific way to try to more or less confine how your chi manifests, and you do the same thing with your subconscious instinct, right? But if you express your intention more specifically, your manifestation intention, then you could try to better confine how your chi will tap into that intelligence to manifest, but you can't fully control it, right? And so this is a very important aspect of transcendental chi control, is when you control your chi in a transcendental way, there's always going to be a kind of random component of it that you can't fully calculate in advance. You don't know what it's going to do, right? Because it's tapping into some type of intelligence. And what that means is that there's always a chance for an undesired outcome, right? A potentially negative and undesirable outcome to occur. Now, it's also possible for a positive and desirable outcome to occur. But you're never really sure what's going to happen. That's why chi control can be very dangerous to work with, right? Because it has like random variables. It can be associated with random variables or random outcomes that you never fully notice in advance. And in occult, they use this for spell casting and things like that. We'll talk more about how they developed the chi to start using manifestation on larger scales and in larger bursts. But they start playing around with this stuff, and a lot of times they end up getting burned, right? They end up getting burned by this chi because they don't know in advance what the chi is going to try to manifest, what it's going to try to do. They can command it to do something using their intention, but you never know in advance what it's really going to do. It can always do something that you weren't expecting and you didn't really want it to do on a conscious level, but you commanded it to do. So it's very dangerous to use it. So as an example, let's say that I am aware that let's say I'm sick and I'm aware what the cause is. So let's say there's some pathogen in my body. Let's say a virus, right? or bacteria. Now, I know that I'm sick due to bacterial infection, and let's say I hold the intention for my immune system, so I have knowledge, right? Knowledge is power. I can make my intention more specific based on the knowledge I have, right? So if I know there's a such thing as the immune system and that it attacks pathogens, then I can hold the intention for my immune system to kill this virus or kill this bacteria. And let's say I keep charging my subconscious around that intention, my chi will start to manifest the change in my body to kill this bacteria. To kill this bacteria. So that sounds like it's okay, right? That would be a good thing. Now it's killing the bacteria. There's just one problem, right? Your immune system, I like to think of your immune system as being like as having a whole bunch of missiles, right? Your lymph nodes and your thymus and things like that. Now, I don't know if the white blood cells are stored in your thymus. Your thymus makes them. But I think white blood cells are largely stored in your bones, if I'm not mistaken, in your bone marrow. But anyway, I could be wrong about that. But I like to think of your immune system where a lot of your, and I know they flow in your blood too, but a lot of your immune system is like having missiles in your body, right? And so you want to be very, very careful in how you use them. Because if you use them incorrectly, those missiles will just start destroying your body, right? So you want to be careful. You want to use them in a very targeted way so they don't damage your body. So they're only damaging the bacteria, the infection, right? The thing that shouldn't be there. But and the body can do that pretty well. It can regulate your immune system so you don't have like a autoimmune response and your immune system starts attacking your body. However, right, let's say you're charging your intention to heal in that way, and the chi manifests a change in your body that causes it to start producing antibodies, right? So your body is normally producing antibodies. It is going to try to produce antibodies in response to a bacterial infection. And I believe that your normal chi control, so when you go to sleep and you gain chi in your spirit, and the chi goes throughout your etheric body, it also goes to it's used in some way that helps your immune system to function, and that's what helps it to attack and create, it helps to manifest a change in your immune system that helps it to mutate in a way that helps to create antibodies for some disease in a more ideal way, right? However, if I'm doing this more transcendentally, using my intention, and I just say create antibodies, I could charge the chi better, right? Probably a little bit more than I do normally or naturally, and that could probably cause my thymus and bone marrow, I believe it also causes your bone marrow, it could potentially cause it to create it could potentially cause it to create antibodies specifically for that bacterial infection, and then it gets rid of the infection. However, that change might also damage my thymus or cause my thymus to change in some way that allows autoimmune antibodies to enter my bloodstream. In other words, it's going to cause my body to create antibodies that, although they kill the bacteria, they also attack my body. That's not what I want. I want antibodies that only attack the bacteria and don't attack my body. My body has certain receptors on the cell membrane on the outside of these cells that the antibodies can't latch onto. But I can make that mistake if I start interfering with the process and using my intention to manifest a change in my body to create antibodies, right? That's an undesired outcome. You see how that works? So you have to be very careful with this stuff. If I start using my chi to mess with the process, right, and say, okay, create this antibody or do this, there's always some outcome that I may not have been expecting that's going to result from using that chi. So again, using your chi is very, very dangerous. Your chi is, when you use your intention to manifest your chi, or use your chi to manifest some change, it's going to tap into an intelligence, and it's going to do something where you just don't know in advance what it's going to do. So it's always pretty risky to start using your chi to do stuff. And that's why I say, like, when you hear about chi energy, you hear about chi, tai chi, and things like that, where they make it seem like using your chi is very, very healthy and is very wonderful and it helps you and extends your life. In a way, but you're just talking about normal chi control, right? So the supernatural version of chi control is transcendental chi control. Oh, I forgot to mention, which I kind of made it clear already, but with transcendental chi control, you have to actually focus on the target, right? So you can only use it directly. You can't use it indirectly, right? With normal chi control, you can use it indirectly. where you're impacting your chi and causing it to manifest in a certain way, or affecting the way your chi manifests in your body, without focusing on a target that's being affected. Right? So if I'm just living life and I'm watching movies, interacting with people, all the intentions I'm going to produce in that pattern of behavior is going to cause my subconscious to charge in a way that impacts my chi, right, and affects my body, even though I wasn't focused on my body. For transcendental chi control, you absolutely have to, it's only going to affect the thing you're focused on. So if I want to heal my body, I have to actually focus on my body. I can't get it from watching movies about healing or talking to others about healing. It'll only work if I hold the intention, draw my attention to the body, and expressly command heal, right? And I charge around that intention. So, but yeah, going back to this, when they talk about chi control, in Tai Chi, it sounds very, very healthy, but if you use it in a more transcendental way, it's extremely dangerous, right? So it can be very dangerous because you don't know what's going to happen. And what I also believe is two things. When your frequency is negative, it's only going to your frequency is never perfectly negative. I should make that clear, because it's always actually a mixture of different frequencies, right? But the more negative your subconscious is, or the more charged it is at a negative frequency, the more negatively your chi is going to try to manifest, right? And it's only going to manifest damaging, negative, unwanted outcomes the more on negative frequencies, right? And so that's why when you're charging more and more negative emotions, it's causing stress, because your body's not really going by that. I mean, your normal chi expression is not really going by your intention directly, because your body's commanding your subconscious to express your chi or manifest your chi in a way that increases your vitality. But what the mind is doing, the mind can charge in a way where it's charging negative frequencies and is dampening the effect that your body's trying to command, right? So your body's trying to command your chi, your subconscious, to express your chi for vitality, which requires a positive frequency. But if the mind is charging a whole bunch of negative energy, it's dampening the effect of the command from the body, which results in stress. Right? And it's not only dampening it, you're still at a weak level manifesting your chi in a negative way in your body as well. So those two things cause negative changes in your body, which we recognize as stress. And then the opposite, the more good version of that, is the placebo effect. If you're just having a good time, it helps you deep charge positive emotions, and it helps your body to command your chi to manifest vitality in your body. So, but if you try to start controlling your chi transcendentally and you're in a really bad mood, before I say that, normally your body dampens the effect that your mind has on chi, right? Because it's dampening your psychic energy. Your psychic energy has to be built up in order for your mind to affect your chi in a more transcendental or more powerful way, right? And your body does that specifically to prevent that damaging effect and the unknown outcome effect of being on a negative frequency, right? So this is a very difficult world. Our body knows that we're going to produce negative emotions and negative intentions, and there'll be many times when we have lots of anxiety and lots of fear or jealousy or hate, things like that. And so it has to dampen the impact of those things and prevent the chi from manifesting so negatively in my body, right? But when you're choosing transcendental chi control, you're moving that dampening effect. So if you use transcendental chi control and you're highly negative, you can really cause damage to your body. So I say all that to say that you have to be very, very, very careful when controlling your chi transcendentally. It's very dangerous. And so for me, when I was practicing controlling my chi, I wanted to pick something that was like super safe, right? As safe as I can make it. Nothing's really safe, but I wanted to pick something that was like, okay, something that almost can't go wrong, right? Because the intention's clear enough. There's not some component of my intention that I didn't account for that could result in some unwanted outcome. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to heal my body, right? That's the safest, nicest, most, nothing can go wrong. All I want is to heal, right? So again, there could be some unforeseen outcome for that, but that was just the one I tested it with. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to heal my body. And so I know my chi is going to my spirit's going to tap into some type of intelligence that tells my chi what to do to heal. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to do something to carry out the intelligence of healing, or carry out the effect of healing, right? And so hopefully it doesn't do anything that I don't want in order to heal, because that would be an unwanted outcome, but that's what I did. But the other thing I wanted to do that I believe, so there's another component of this, and that has to do with your spiritual energy, right? So your spiritual energy, that's your connection to God. I believe fundamentally that the more spiritual energy you have, or the more connected to God you are, so all negative feelings are dampened when that happens, but the chi manifests in a more purely, perfectly positive way, where there's no unwanted outcome, right? And so God, right, when he affects reality, I don't know that, it's necessary to call it chi. I don't really know how it works in God's case. I'm just using the term chi for us and for me and living things. But when God's spirit affects reality, it affects it perfectly, right? Because his frequency is perfectly positive. There's absolutely no unwanted, can't possibly be an unwanted outcome because his frequency is pure. It's perfect, right? For us, our frequency is actually a mixture. The more negative it is, the more it's going to manifest something negative and something undesired. The more positive it is, in theory, it should be manifesting something more desired, and has more of a positive outcome, right? But our frequency is never perfectly positive, so we don't fully know what's going to happen. In our conscious mind, we have trouble getting our thoughts and our intentions to be a perfect command. God is perfect, so he's perfectly positive, has a perfect clarity in his intention, and so his word will manifest a change perfectly. And so that's why you don't really want to, the most ideal thing would be to rely on God and connect to God. In theory, right? If you were going to do this, you would want to increase your spiritual energy. So that's actually what I did. So when I was healing my body, and I'll talk a little more about it in the next video, because this is something that I couldn't do with psychic energy. So this is something I'll talk about in the next video that I did with Transcendental Chi Control for healing my body. But I kept charging spiritual energy and then charging the intention to heal and then charging spiritual energy, because I can actually do it this time. Normally I can't charge spiritual energy and psychic energy at the same time, but I could do it with healing. And so I kept doing it because I wanted to sort of purify my intention and purify my spirit to increase the chances of some positive outcome occurring, right? And so I did it. I only did it for a short time. Like I said, I didn't even really deep charge it. I'll talk more about that experience later. But that's what I wanted to do to try to increase the odds of something not negative happening, right? So yeah, ideally, and I don't know how this works. I haven't prayed to God about this. I haven't tried this with God and things like that. But ideally, you would only want to start manifesting things with the Spirit of God, because that's going to help protect you from doing things negatively. And ultimately, what it really comes down to is just appealing to the power of the Holy Spirit, right? So the Holy Spirit is the component of the Trinity of God, and the Holy Spirit can cause changes in a perfect way that perfectly reflects the will of God. There's nothing to mess it up. Like if we tried to manifest our intentions using chi, it would mess up in some way because we're imperfect, right? Our command is going to mess up or be unclear in some way. It's not going to command the intelligence properly in terms of what to do, and our frequency is negative in some way, so it's going to be quantized and manifest in some negative way. Something's going to go wrong, right? But the Holy Spirit could do it perfectly, with perfect clarity and perfect positivity. So in theory, you would ideally you would lean on the Holy Spirit to kind of just do everything for you if you can, right? Because it's not going to do anything wrong. Now, can you sort of control your chi in a way that's supported by the Holy Spirit and the Holy Spirit helps you along? That is not something I have tried to do. I do talk about that concept later in the book in chapter 10, because that's when I first came up with it. So I'll just talk about that again later, about a potential ability to do something like that, but I've never tried to do that. The closest thing I've done is try to heal my body while also charging spiritual energy, which increases my connection to God, and that connection to God is going to cause my subconscious instinct to behave more in the likeness of God in Jesus Christ, and so that should help prevent the undesired outcome and allow me to command my chi in a more perfect way. Won't be perfect, but in a way that's closer to the ideal manifestation. So that again, these are just my theories on this stuff. I think we pretty much covered everything about Transcendental Chi Control. In the next video, we're going to talk about how to actually charge your chi, right? Or how to actually charge your subconscious to use your chi. Now, again, like I said, it's mostly the same as charging psychic energy, but we'll just kind of go through it. There's a few tiny few things are a tiny bit different, which I kind of mentioned already. But yeah, we'll kind of go through most of it just as a formality. Anyway. But yeah, that's it for now, though. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video.